I live in East LA, I live in Boyle Heights, and I really feel at home in LA, you know, as a Latina immigrant with privileges, of course, so I must say that. I'm always very inspired and sparked by the diversity of peoples and cultural production, the strength of all the social struggle that happens here, and I feel I can connect to. So I always say that LA is a place that it's a very tight woven social fabric. Like each thread has its own color, and that every new person that comes and starts like weaving and completing that social fabric brings like a new color into that fabric. So I really like to think about the city that way. I approached the 3 collections at Huntington under a premise, or actually an Aymaran aphorism that is very difficult to pronounce, but basically translates something like looking back to walk forward. The past is in front of us while the future is behind, which, you know, in our Western kind of conception, it's the other way around. Well, for ancestral Aymaran epistemologies, the past what we know actually because we've gone through it, so that's what we can see and actually understand, and the future is actually behind us because we don't know it, no? I think that has helped me also navigate kind of with a decolonial framework, the collections, the botanical, the art collection, and the library. And I think artists, we have a different way of navigating the archive. At least I would find something that would take me to something else, that would take me to something else. I guess it was a more rhizomatic or rhizome way of navigating. So I was thinking, what if the past rebels and becomes this haunting entity that kind of messes up with any certainty of our dominion, no?
I grew up down in the port area of Los Angeles in a place called Wilmington, California. So I grew up at what could either be considered a beginning or the end of Los Angeles. A lot of my family, including my mother, they work down in the docks, ILWU. So they're all union members, you know. So it's a real kind of blue collar, kind of working class area. In fact, it's kind of arguable that it's one of the last bastions of organized labor in the United States. So those types of things are the kind of backbone, the kind of context in which I work. The way that I've been able to interact or somehow sync with the museum is to look at things through the perspective of drawing. To be in the context of a museum like the Huntington and to be able to go into the library to do research is a kind of interesting jurisdiction in which an artist can operate, right? One of the first things that they sent me to was to look at these 500-year-old Venetian illuminated text, like these small sheets on vellum, had all this imagery of battles and images of justice, and then all of them would have, like, kind of behind me here, the notion of a setting in a landscape, right? So it's like just when kind of perspective was starting to be developed, and more so a kind of atmospheric perspective, because the things in the foreground in these beautifully little illuminated pages were these really saturated kind of primary colors, and then they would have a window behind them that have a whole scene, port or something in the background, and they were kind of vignetted in these small things. So like an atmospheric perspective of a landscape was something that was coming out of the pages that I was looking at. How can I translate that over into viewing a landscape such as the Huntington Gardens? And what are the things that are happening here that get framed by architecture, that get framed by bushes, that get framed by statuary? So to have a kind of supporting system like the Huntington Library, like this 5 at the H experience and exhibition and space has been fantastic.